Hello, my friends, and welcome to MSP Unplugged's Tech Talk Tuesday. My name is Rick Smith, and I am your host. This is the place to learn tips, tricks, and strategies to help run and grow your IT service business. Whether you're a one-person shop or leading a team for the journey, this is the place for you. Let me introduce to you my co-host, Chicago's own, and an all-around good guy, Mr. Paco Lebron. How are you today, sir?
Boy, like I like to say, better than good, better than most. Mr. Smith, how you doing this fine Monday / Tuesday / whatever day we're recording on today?
I'm doing good. It is Tuesday towards the end of, I don't know the date, but it is towards the end of February, and it is cold outside, baby. And I'm in New Jersey, so I know it must be brick over there in Chicago.
So funny enough, it's 60 degrees and pouring right now, if you
You
want to
gotta
say.
be kidding me.
Gotta love
I think
Chicago
I'll take
weather.
that over this any day.
Yep, yep.
Wow. But good to see you, my friend. Glad to have you here with us. Um, Today's topic, we're going to talk about branding, some of the things we've done to get our branding, some choices we wish we'd have maybe done differently, but how we're establishing our branding. But before we dive into today's topic, I'd like to give a quick announcement to our upcoming event. Paco and I's favorite thing to talk about right now, and that is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged is happening September 7th to the 10th at the Delta Hotel in Woodbridge, New Jersey. TechCon is our annual gathering of IT business owners, techs, and vendors in the space. There you will learn from like-minded business owners in panels and breakout sessions, gain key takeaways from partners and vendors in the community. And my absolute favorite part of the show is you experience those one-on-one and spontaneous group conversations. This is where great friendships are developed, relationships are cultivated, and ideas are exchanged. Tickets are on sale right now at techconunplugged.com. Take advantage of our early bird pricing, which is $199. That pricing is good until March 31st. We do look forward to seeing you there. Anything to add on that, Mr. Paco?
I was just saying, it's like you said, where the magic happens.
Where the magic happens. We are so looking forward to this year's show. We are ironing out some things on the agenda. Some more vendors have committed. Keep abreast on what's going on at our website again, techconunplugged.com. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact us at info@mspunplugged.com. Excuse me. Paco, today's topic here, we're going to talk about branding and basically how we develop branding, how we go about it, and some mistakes we may have made along the way, and how we're working on it to make it grow and make it better. So as usual, I am going to I introduce the topic and I'll let you start on
Oh, of course. Why wouldn't it be saying that way?
it.
You think he'd be running the show around here? No, kidding. No, I think when we all talk about branding, right? Everyone thinks about, what you go ahead and put on top of the cow's behind to make sure it's yours. No, I'm kidding. No, I think what branding is really trying to figure out, a lot of people will try and identify branding as a part of marketing, but really branding is really talking about what is your identity? What are you trying to um really portray to your end client, and most importantly to your peers and your competitors as well, that are looking at you and thinking, all right, there's this new guy, right, that's on the block, or there's this person that has had the space for quite some time. What do we need to do to go ahead and compete? So branding is more of like your identity, who you are, who you're trying to transpire to be, and who are you trying to really serve. And when I say branding, a lot of people, and I think a lot of people get lost in this, is that they feel branding is themselves as the same as the company. And so a lot of people, when they start off first originally, is that they are the company. And so when you get to a point where, you kind of lose your identity behind that, and really figuring out, all right, well, this is its own entity, right? It's its own person. How would that person breathe? How would that person walk? How does it want to be perceived? And really, you should be thinking about it as another thing or person or identity versus your own, because although people will identify you for your company, you really should not be your company, or you kind of run into some problems down the line. um Rick, when you kind of started out, I think you said you went through two branding of identities for your business. What your company was called something before, and then you rebranded it quite some time ago. Why don't you talk a little bit more about that process and like what made you come up with the identity of your original business? What made you change it? Right. And kind of everything in between while I try and fix this blurry camera that I got going on here in YouTube.
Well, the thing for us, we started as a break fix, right? I started as a break fix, one man shop break fix out of the basement of my home. Um, at the time, I named the company after my child, my oldest daughter, who was Taylor Renee. I called the company Tay Ray Solutions. I think a lot of people have heard this story before, and that is where we were from 2003 to 2015. And as I say that, I realize that in coming up on March 15th, I will be celebrating 20 years in business, which is just amazing to me. But
Damn, son.
but we as a company started that way, named the company after my daughter, and was truly a break fix. And I truly ran it as my business, my hobby, or my hobby as my business, or vice versa, however you want to say that. And so it was all really about me, right? Now come 2015, after numerous complaints from my soon to come after two other daughters, that they wanted a company. Why is a company only named after Taylor? And they wanted it. So I had them get together, come up with a name. And then that's what we changed the name for. Funny story behind that. This is a little side note. The name of the company, I told them, I said, okay, we want something that, symbolizes a new beginning. I knew we were going from the break fix, we were moving over to the MSP side of things. Since it was a new name at the right time for the transition, I just wanted something to symbolize basically a new beginning, new start. They came up with the name Renactus, which was originally supposed to be Renactus. Renactus, I think, is Latin for new beginning or new start. And somehow in the translation or in the spelling, somebody somebody added a C to the word, and we ended up with Renactus. I didn't realize this. It didn't really matter. I like the name because everyone always says, "Where'd the name come from? What does it mean?" I say, actually, it means nothing. It's a mispronunciation of what it was supposed to mean. But I actually like the name, and we stayed with it. So getting back to branding, at that point, still in making a transition, I was still basically on my own. So all of everything that represented the company was me. Of course, the story always is you want to make the company, its own entity, as Paco's saying, and you want to, you want that to stand out separately from you. But one of the things to understand is when you are the one who goes out and you do the selling, do the tech, do everything, do the fixing for everything, solving the problems for your clients, you do become the company, right? So it's still important for you to separate the two entities, which is why we have, again, business classifications, because this is not Rick Smith Incorporated. So, this is why we have business, classifications, but also we brand it with, again, our website, our identity, our, our tagline, all the things we do is part of our branding. Now, I have been then, I have employees now, so there's more than just me. But I'm still the face of the company. So you still will see, if you go to the website, you'll see my picture. If you go, and I like it that way. I try to, even though now I don't necessarily have to, and I don't have the time to do it as much, I still go out, I meet the clients. I still go out, I do tech work when I need to. They still see me. And that, for me, that's important. So that for me is part of the branding. Now, again, I keep it separate. Renactus is separate from Rick Smith, and I guess the best way to say this is Rick Smith is part of Renactus, but Renactus is not Rick Smith. And I guess that's the way to say that, how I separate
Right.
the two. But that's how I got to that's how I look at it and where I'm at now with that.
No, that makes sense. And so I actually looked it up. So Renatus or Renatus, depending on how you pronounce it. And I don't know what the proper pronunciation is, but it is Latin for born again. So for everyone
Yes.
that wants to know, is born again. That's actually pretty cool. I've heard you say the story multiple times. I guess I didn't put two and two together that there was a C that was added into that. So an accidental blurb that now has created originality for Mr. Smith and Renactus
And it's
Technology.
funny.
But
There is a company in New Jersey called Renactus. So it
oh,
actually
really?
worked out. But they branded after we did, which I think is hilarious. But
Oh,
anyway.
interesting. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, it's funny you say that because like right now my fiance, she is going through the process of trying to brand her business right now and trying to figure out the identity. And she has all the elements, but she can't come and settle on a name. And so,
Mhm.
it's so hard to come up with a name, especially that identifies what you have to say. Um, and I'll kind of maybe go into my little story about my business and then, what, thinking about and ideas for branding is, for me, everyone's heard the story and I've told this multiple times. Business started out of spite. Check out all of my earlier videos that of how it came to be. But when I was trying to figure out the name, I wanted it to be something specifically, and like you, I was doing break fix. And so it continued to be a thing where I was like, all right, I don't want to call myself a geek. I don't want to call myself a nerd. There's so many nerds out there. There's so many geeks out there. And so I was trying to think, okay, what's smart? What's something that can, go for whatever. Try to steal Maven, but someone in Grand Rapids had it. I don't know what's with that guy. So,
Loser.
you know, inside joke for those that are part of the community. And if you're not part of the community, you should go ahead to patreon.com and join us and know what the inside jokes are. But shameless plug. But really, trying to figure out, I was like, all right, well, Prodigy is like a smart person that is good at what they do and et cetera, et cetera. And so there's actually a double meaning behind Prodigy as well, that I'll go into in a minute, that speaks to my identity but goes into a little bit further. And then I wanted it to be of tech because I figure if we ever changed, it would always be a technology type company. So we'd be able to really focus and figure out a point where we can get to a section and really understand that, if the industry changed, which it has, I'd be in a better spot to be able to continue. So what ended up happening is so everyone TACH was taken because it was I think there was a company in Utah called Prodigy Technologies, and the website Prodigy Tech, they took it. But then there was another company in Austin that was Prodigy Tech, TEK. And that was really what I wanted to call my business. And I was like, oh, come on. So I was like, all right. So I said, what about Tex? And Tex was available. I was like, we have a bunch of Tex. We have whatever, blah, blah, blah. And so, it actually worked out. So got the name, registered on the domain. It is trademarked now. So now I don't have to worry about having to deal with that part of branding, which is a concern with everyone. Um, and so it really helped understand that piece of I always, you know, uh, working with a buddy of mine, he was his business. Like the name of his business was him, and he could not separate was the big thing. You know, he gave out his cell phone number. He was doing business on all hours of the day because people were calling him Saturday and Sundays. But he had a different clientele. He had a way of where he was like, look, I'm busy right now. I'm with my daughter. I'll get back to you. Or, hey, I'm out at a family function. I'll get back to you. And they were okay with that because they knew that that was the support that they were receiving. Um, Me, I wanted it a little bit more structured. I wanted it to be a little bit better, but I wanted to ensure that when people saw ProdigyTeks, they didn't associate me with it. They saw the business as the business, and I just happened to be the one running it. So that took a lot of work where, I had to create a separate number. So that was my first thing on doing branding is creating a whole separate number. It was at Google Voice first. Then I think I put it to Vonage. Then like a host, then I went to 8x8. I think I switched to whatever I had at that. Oh, Vonage Business, then Uma, Then I went back to Vonage Business. Then I went to 8x8. Then I went to Microsoft Phone Teams. You get the distance. So I went through many vendors.
Same number though.
Happily, yeah, same number. And it's actually a vanity number as well. So it's actually 312-600-TEKS, TEKS,
Oh, cool.
versus an 8357. So that's kind of how we translated that number for that, and it just worked out. So that's how we landed on our number, how we get on our website, how to get a hold of us. I had a separate email address, I had a separate information to go from there. But that's really what kind of focused on our branding. But I think for you, you mentioned on how you had to kind of like rebrand yourself, right? And you kind of had to come to a new with the new times. And so for us, we did something similar, but we didn't change the name. There was a conference recently that said it was a marketing it was a conference, and there was a marketing person on there that literally said, all right, I want you to raise your hand if your logo does not have a power button in it. And so when everybody
doesn't have a what in it?
The power button. You know how the power button has that symbol?
Oh, okay.
And they said, I want everyone to raise their hand if the logo is not the power symbol. There was like 3 hands that went up. Unfortunately, mine was also had a power button in its logo at the time. So we went through a rebrand, and we went with Moxie Services, who is Beatrice Colina over in Colombia, has done a lot of great work. She's done our work here at MSP Unplugged. She's done my work for ProdigyTeks. I mean, great graphic designer, great services with her creative agency. And so she redid all of her stuff. And so what she did was she rebranded it to being a shield, because instead of the power button, but still with the faceplate of one of these characters here, which is a bar drinking conversation of where the name and part of the logo came from, so that Marvel doesn't come after us. So the point is that that's kind of how we started perceiving branding, how we try to figure out identity. But there's a lot of things that go into that, right? And how you want to be perceived. Rick, when you kind of came out with Renactus and the brand to be perceived, did you always want it to be kind of like the button up suit and tie? We got to go through these type of processes. We have to figure out what's going on here and there. Or were you kind of doing the uncarrier thing like T-Mobile and wearing the dry fit shirts and showing up in shorts and saying, hey, how's it going, guy? And things like that. What did you had to consider before you kind of landed on how you wanted the business to be represented?
Well, I knew, I wanted to be professional, right? I was never going to, I'm not the flip flop and shorts guy. That's just never been me. So, I wanted the company to represent, I wanted us to represent professionalism. So I always felt that we needed to, me, or, at that time, I always needed to be professional. And that doesn't mean suit and tie. That means, appropriate business casual. I wear all the time jeans, a lot of times a button down polo, as you said, a dry fit, but I try to always keep it branded with the logo for the company. But that was always the excuse me, the perception I wanted to put out, that we were professional, but we weren't stuffy. And this is not to say anyone who wears shirt and ties to work, because that is who you are. That was never who I am. I was. So I wanted, for that part, it needed to represent that. And again, you cannot, and then I guess this is where you get, you have to make some decisions as to personally what your role is and then what you want your company to represent, right? I was going in as the person selling you tech services. I was a person going in to fix your tech services, right? Or, the person you talk to on the phone. All of those things I was doing, right? I cannot wear a white shirt and a tie and dress pants and then get on the floor to fix something, right? Or get behind, or standing on a ladder or whatever needs to be done to fix a server or reach something. So, I needed to be comfortable, right? And I always thought, as long as we stay presentable, it was fine. So I did 2 things I incorporated. When we were just going on regular calls or a business call, I would wear something like what I have on now, long sleeve polo, or short sleeve polo, with a collar. When we're going on to do work. Let's say we were, because I do a lot of cabling, I do a lot of project work. So when we're doing project work that requires us to really get dirty, or we have also t-shirts that have the logo on them. They're dry fit t-shirts, same logo, everything, but they don't have collars. And we use those to do our basically go in to do our any kind of project work. When it's colder, we got pullover sweatshirts, some with hoods, some without. Same thing with logoed, and it was just the dress attire that we do, right? So when we go out, so that's how I wanted to present the company as far as dress goes. Just again, business professional but casual, and I
Right.
also wanted clients to have that relationship with me that we could just talk. I'm just
Sure.
another guy.
No, I hear you. Yeah. I mean, look, I'll tell you what, it sure does suck trying to wear like a whole nice outfit that you got a meeting that you have in like 2 hours, and then you go to an automotive shop and you got to swap out a PC that hasn't been dusted
Exactly.
in the past like 45 days. Boy, I'll tell you, there's a lot of plastic and a lot of starch that has to be used for that type of setup. I'll tell you that much. And it is not pleasant. So, you know, I've always been the type to understand about appearance, right? And drilled as a youngin' on, you got to put your best foot forward. You got to and I kind of just got tired of it. And I was like, you know what? This is how I want to be perceived. Like you said, professional, but courtesy. But I think, we've had to get on some of our guys here that have been a little bit looser with that term when
Right.
they go on site, that they're representing a brand, right? And it goes
Mhm.
back to the branding. Like, what do you want your business to be? So like for us, we have all our polos, we have we all have a specific way we do things, we talk things, we have a standard, right? And it goes back to standardization of what you have for like your stack, but also the standardization of what you do on an experience, both on the phone, while working tickets, even through communications as well, right? And so allowing us to do that really helped us where, we have our polos, we have our t-shirts where I throw a jacket on that has my logo in the middle for, the quasi professional setting. Um, but also we have the t-shirts as well when we're doing it's like a move day or a construction day. We're not we're dressing down, but we're still representing the brand, right?
Mhm.
And so I think that's a big importance of having that, and being able to have your best foot forward. But I think the most important thing that gets us really caught up and really gets a lot of people um not in trouble, but basically, you could do better is consistency, is the
Mhm.
consistency of your brand. I cannot tell you how many times I've seen a colleague of mine where they're calling themselves one thing here, their website says something else, their website is their social media says something else. Meaning, like, I have one guy that a buddy that has like 3 names for his company, and he interchanges the company names throughout whatever. But if you go to any one of them, they all lead to this one site that has nothing to do with what he's offering in services. So like, it just boggles my mind, and he doesn't see anything wrong with it because his thing is like, well, I want to be able to offer everything. I was like, yeah, you offer everything, but it all leads to nothing. But
Right.
that's just whatever.
It's
But
confusing.
right, I mean, when's the last time you've checked your Yelp page since you've been break fixed to when you went to managed services? And is that an avenue that someone is trying to find you? Have you checked to see if you've updated your logo? Your old logos are
Mhm.
not somewhere else located in a place. Have you checked to see when was the last time you connected to a certain site? These are all things that you got to really help for. And I think everyone gets stuck on this whole SEO thing, but they're not realizing the local SEO
Mhm.
piece of it all, right? Because there's local people that are going to find you first, in my opinion, unless depending, if you're spending thousands of dollars and you got your stuff tight, more power to you. But I mean, there's so much you can do to improve your local SEO. And when you make those updates, you make those consistent changes. I mean, you could change hours, and making sure those are consistent across all the board is going to go a longer way than you putting the same, multiple posts on a particular page. On, like, let's say LinkedIn, when someone found you on Google My Business, or if you found you on Clutch, it looks different than when they're trying to do their research on you, and you can't even put yourself together, let alone do they think you're going to put their technology together,
Mhm.
and so it's a big reflection on how you respond and things of that nature. So you got to be consistent, you got to be able to respond. That's a piece that I would have to say as far as branding for that. For you, Rick, when it comes to branding, right? And really figuring out how to put your best foot forward, what are things that really make you think like, I got to make sure I'm on top of it, or I'm very consistent on it, that's very important to you to make sure that the brand is represented?
Well, it goes a couple of things. One is like you just talked about. So we make sure that, again, we've changed company name, we've changed logo. So Renactus, this is the second logo, restructuring. The second logo we've done, right? So again, we've had to go through, and I've had myself and people that work for us comb the internet, basically looking to make sure that this is the logo that shows up every time you see this name, right? So that is important. Um, but it also goes to, your brand is more than just what people visually see, right? It's more than just being neat, showing up. It's more than just having a consistent logo across. It is also about, what you stand for, about how you conduct your business, and how people see you, right? Because this is, I think, probably one of the most important things is your clients or the people you meet have to have the impression from you that you're trustworthy, that you're reliable, that you do what you say you're going to do. And that goes much further than showing up in a suit and tie or showing up with a nice logo shirt. It's doing what you say you're going to do, following through, and being, I think the key word here is being consistent to who you are. And it also means, and I learned this later on as I'm branding, is not doing things that you don't stand for, right? Or not doing things that you don't believe in or that you don't do. That is part of your branding too. So when you venture out and do things, and particularly if you're not quote unquote an expert in it, you tarnish your brand if it doesn't come out right. You
Yep.
don't do electrical work, right? If you're not an electrician. If you don't cable, don't cable. Hire a cable company to do it. Make sure that those guys go in representing you well, right?
Right.
If whatever it is you do or you don't do, be consistent with it. And again, it goes back to knowing your limits, accepting your limits, and embracing them, really, because there's nothing wrong with saying no, we don't do that. This is just as well when we hear this. It's not as much an issue anymore, but I can remember countless times, particularly in the break fix industry, when people would bring machines, or you pick up machines, or you go to someone's location to fix a machine. There's counterfeit software in there. There's there are things there that are not right. And
And really quick, and I want to highlight that on the crack software, and how much of a problem that is when you go into a business. I'm going to tell you what, you know who's the one software vendor, and that's a big partner of ours that we use, that is the one that has consistently found crack software on all machines when other detectors could not find that there was like a cracker or there was something else going on there, like antivirus, EDR, or I mean not EDR, like managed AV, next gen AV. It's all BS. Huntress.
Mhm.
Huntress has been the only consistent software that I've run, and I've tested this because I've tried other vendors and I've tried whatever. Huntress is the only one that has been consistent to find cracked software and report it. And you want to know how I know? It's because when I loaded it for my two techs when I hired them through our freelance agency, I don't know. Let me be mindful of my comments. I don't know what business practice was occurring, and I think it's something to do on how business is done in that way down there, is my understanding. But when I brought it up, they were like, yeah, that's just how it's done here. So
Mhm.
what do you mean that's how it's done here? That's not cool. Like, how are you not going to? You're providing the equipment, but then you didn't. You're not going to tell me how this is what. So I had to, and luckily I found it right, and so I
Mhm.
was able to uninstall it. We installed it because we had premiums or E3, so we installed it. It activated. We're good to go. But like, had it not been hundreds to tell us that that was what it does, that was an eyesight. Just completely would have been missed, right?
Mhm.
And so just one of those things to think of where, like, as you're taking on, what do you want to be known for?
Right.
A. B, if you did do that, because I know probably a bunch of us have in the early days, you better go back and fix your stuff, because audits are not nice
Right.
and fines are not even nicer. So that's what I would
Mhm.
say to all of that.
Yeah, and it just goes back to too. It goes back to integrity. And again, I'm not accusing anyone of being perfect. We've all run into some issues that were questionable. We've all had to, maybe particularly in the beginning, maybe made some shortcuts we probably are not proud of. But you have to, again, it goes back to who you are and what you want your company to represent. Now, and I'll just say it this way. If you go to a somewhere not your own and do service for a company, right? And you see that they're not doing things on the up and up that way, right? I'm not talking about anyone's business practices, how they do business, but something that you have to service, right? And you continue to service that, you send a message to that person as well that, hey, I'm willing to overlook certain things, right? That becomes part of who you are, in at least in their mind. Now, if they have friends who do the same thing or business associates, then they'll pass you on to those guys, and then you become the guy who will deal with the questionable practices with things like that. So that's why I say again, all of these things you do is part of your branding, right? It's part of who you are. So they always tell you, I remember all the time when you sit down, they tell you to write goals or write out your personal and your future goals and who you want to be. And they tell you, if you're, pretend you're at your funeral, what do you want people to say about you, right? And it's the same thing. And then that's how you're supposed to live your life, right? That's probably how you're supposed to, grow your life and live by those principles that you want people to think of you. It's the same thing with your business, right? How do you want, when people talk about you or talk about your company, what do you want them to say to their friends? You want them to brag to their friends that you are a professional, that you do things like that. Again, we say we make it work, right? We make IT work. That's really all the customer cares about. They want their IT to work. They don't want slowdowns. So represent that. That needs to be a part of your brand as well. And it's just the way I try to run the business and try to, you know, perfect my branding that way.
No, no. I mean, I think it's a matter of trying to be consistent, trying to make sure that you really focus on what's important to you, right? And being able to really just understand, for the most part, what you want to do when it comes to your own business, right? So, one thing I will leave as kind of like a resource, and this will be another sign in for why you should join our Patreon subscription. So, I'm going to put up a link real quick, and this is going to allow, and we're not going to talk about a lot about local SEO right now. I think we'll probably have someone else come on and talk a little bit more about it. But this was a cheat sheet that I used to use back in the day from Moz.com. They've been pretty reliable when it comes to local SEO and SEO in general and understanding where your ranking is. So this is actually going to allow you to kind of how to help to be consistent, how to try and figure out your stuff, and kind of go from there. So this will be really helpful on that. And obviously you can always look at other services if you don't have the time to do that. I think Tech Marketing Engine on their Tech Reputation platform has a service that allows you to do this. Don't quote me on that, but I would reach out to Matt and Ramey and see. I'm pretty sure that they have in one of their plans that allows them to help you be consistent across all the interwebs. But if you do have the time, I have to dig it up because I believe this image is no longer available on the interwebs. There is a actual image that will tell you all these specific sites that feed the SEO into other platforms about your business. And apparently, if you help create, claim, add all your listings, it will improve your local SEO. And the only reason why I'm suggesting is because I've done this and I've seen that it has improved. And there are websites you haven't even heard of that you didn't even think that handles local SEO. But I'm not releasing it to the online community group for Facebook. I'm not going to go ahead and send it to anyone who asks us. It's going to be posted specifically in the Patreon website. So if you're a Patreon subscriber, we will make a post. We will put that image in there for you supporting the show. And that's what we're going to start doing is little things like this that are going to be helpful and specific that are going to be really awesome. And these are tidbits information. We're going to make sure for those that are supporting us, we want to make sure we take care of you as well. And that's what I have to say about that. Back to you, Mr. Smith.
Want to make one correction. You said Tech
What's that?
Marketing Engine, correct?
Yeah.
Matthew Rodello,
Right. What did I say?
Matt Rainey.
No, I said Matt and Ramey.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I was like, Matt Rainey.
Matt or Ramey, as in Matt Rodella and Ramey Bell.
Okay, we're gonna
The
edit that out.
co-owners and founders of Tech Marketing Engine.
Right. Okay, we're gonna edit that out then.
But
But
Smith.
that's hilarious. Okay. See, folks, we're not in the same room. So I heard one thing, he heard another.
It's my deep accent.
I heard one thing, he said another. It's a better way to say it, right? But yeah, and I think that the whole idea of branding is important. And I think what we talked about is just the beginnings, right? This is just, really the beginning essence of it, but it's, what we found to be probably the most important. Again, Google local, like we're talking local SEO, Google My Business is extremely important. And I encourage everyone to make sure that and your website, if there are two things that need to be most consistent, all of them should be, but if there are two things that need to be the most consistent, is your Google local profile and your website. Your profile feeds, your local profile will feed your website and vice versa, and that does make a big difference for SEO as well. I'm no SEO expert, but I do know that for a fact. I do want to recommend a book for everyone. As Paco's talking about, we will post what Paco just talked about will be posted on our Patreon page. But this one I will give away to everyone. If you're thinking about branding, and this doesn't matter whether you're a one person shop or you are leading a team for the journey, or if you're a more established tech, with employees. But there's a book called Founder Brand. It's by Dave Gerhardt. It's a really good book on branding. It is, particularly if you are the face of your company, this talks a lot about how that works and separating the two, but still being the face of your company. But also, if you are a larger organization, it just talks about the importance of branding and in everything you're doing that represents your company. So again, it's Founder Brand. It's by Dave Gerhardt. Get it on, I guess, what's it called? Audible. Because I know none of us have time to pick up a physical book anymore and actually read it. But
perfect. Sounds good. Well, I think that's going to be it for the show today. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. My final thoughts is, you got to keep doing your due diligence. You got to go ahead and focus on, you got to try and keep moving. But you got to really keep in mind as you fast forward and really figure out what you want to do for your branding. I think that you got to figure out what you want to do. You have to plan ahead, set those goals. I know it's a dirty word, goals, and really figure out what you want to do. Because again, it's all about how you're perceived. But I will tell you this: do not have analysis paralysis. You just got to do it. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? You can rebrand. I know companies and big company vendors in our industry that have rebranded every few years. And sometimes you just don't even know what to call them. You can also look at Microsoft recalling their products 17 million times, and you won't know what you got when you got it, because by the time you got it, it's something different when you bought it. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and leave it out there. That is my final thoughts. TechConUnplugged.com. Get your early bird pricing today. Again, end of March will be the last that you can get this fine discount for this fine quality of programming. And I'll go toss it back to you, Mr. Smith.
Well, everyone, we're going to come to the end here. We want to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. We invite you to tune in every Tuesday and Thursday. You can watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged or facebook.com/MSP Unplugged. For those of you who do that, we would ask you to like, subscribe, hit the notification button to be notified whenever a new episode is available. If you're one who likes to listen rather than watch, you can take us on the go with your favorite podcatcher app. We're on Amazon Music, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. We do want to thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on MSP Unplugged.